Today's topic is our bulk editing tool and the CAD rename tool. Okay, as you can see on my screen, the previous workshops that we've had are the category browser, access controls not as owner, importing via CSV files, and today's topic is the bulk editor and CAD rename tool. What I've done here is, so I've created it as a project and I've set a series of tasks that I want to step through with you. The first tool that we're going to pick on is the bulk editor tool. Okay, now I'm going to use an example here of some electrical diodes and their released files. Okay, so everybody should be familiar with the fact that when something is work in progress and you have it reserved for modification, you're allowed to modify the attributes of that item. When something gets released and it gets locked down, you can no longer modify those attributes. Okay, so if something is pre-released, which I will show you in a minute, you can use the bulk edit tool. And if things are already released, we can put you in a special administration group, and you can also use the bulk editing tool. So my first example, I'm going to go to my category browser and I'm going to search for a part. It's standard purchased hardware, it's electrical, it's a diode, and it's a barrier diode, Shakti barrier diode. So these are the items that I want to focus on. I'm just going to minimize my navigation window there. So as we can see here, these are all released parts. So under normal conditions, I would not be allowed to modify these parts. But quite often the need arises, and so that you don't have to reserve them, take the status back to work in progress, edit them one by one, and then re-release them, because that's what you would have to do today if you wanted to update an attribute that is acceptable to your business. Clearly, if it's unacceptable to modify something when it is released, then you do not make it available. If I try and use the bulk edit tool here, so there's a new tool available on the right click menu, whether I'm selecting an individual item or whether I'm selecting multiple items. The bulk edit tool, it says all 11 items cannot be modified. Either you do not have access control or you are not a member of the power group bulk item editors. Okay, so let's go to the admin tool. Now, when you next have an upgrade, we've renamed a lot of the power user groups. So historically, we've had various groups that do special things. When you upgrade, these will be renamed automatically to power group. So we've got the replacing manager, rename managers, item number editors, category managers and administrators. And this new one here is bulk item editors. If I edit this group for my default standard business unit, which is CSI, I'm going to add myself. I'm logged in as Stuart McBurney. I'm going to add myself to that power group. So you can control who can and who cannot have a mask and a cape like a superhero. Powerful tools. Okay. Now, if I go to the bulk edit tool, I get this screen appear. We've deliberately done this in this way so that it's a very linear process. Rather than having a screen appear with all of the attributes, which we think it would be too easy to make a mistake. And this is something, you know, powerful tools are dangerous tools. So I would like to change, you'll see in the background here, I've got some Roche compliance attributes. So I've added custom attributes to my database for Roche compliance. Is it compliant? What is the source of compliance? And are there any exceptions? So I'm going to choose the attribute, which is it Roche compliant? And I'm going to say yes. I also want to modify the compliance date. So 14th, let's say as of Friday compliance. I also want to modify the source of compliance, which was compliance from the manufacturer. Okay, it's just an example. Your attributes may well be different. But the point here is I can modify multiple attributes across multiple parts, whether they are work in progress and reserved, or whether they are released and not reserved. If I say OK, you must put your password in. We cannot allow this to happen unless you are a member of the group, and therefore verifying your password makes sure that it's you doing this. We've added some cautionary comments here. So always read these comments, because clearly you're doing something quite powerful and potentially dangerous. If I say OK now, what we will see here is we've set this column all to yes, and we've set the source of compliance to the manufacturer, and we haven't set the effectivity date. Now that's interesting, so I'm not sure why that didn't work. I'll investigate later. Okay, but you see what I've managed to do is I've managed to edit all of these items even though they're released. If I go to this item and look at the audit trail, if I look in here, the audit trail is telling me that it did a bulk update and the manufacturer went from nothing to manufacturer. The compliance date was bulk updated from that. I know why that's a problem, because that's got the time in as well, and I'm not displaying time. Okay, so I know why that's a problem. And this went from compliant from not null value to yes. You'll also notice here that the EUM update has been triggered automatically. If these items have already been transferred electronically to your ERP system, and we've just modified something against them, they get automatically resent to your ERP system. Okay, so we're tracking who did what when, and we're triggering any automatic processes that are required in the background as well. Okay, so that's my first example. I mean, I could, if I just wanted to correct a mistake, I can't actually see any mistakes, but if I select this item, let me just go back to properties, even though it's released, because I'm in the special group, I could just say, well, I need to correct a problem with the description, and I could enter a new description in here and put it right. So in reality, what I would do is I would grab that, copy that, and then go in and bulk edit the description. And maybe I want to put in here RRM or something like that. Okay, or take that out, but you get the idea. Okay, modified. And again, audit trail, bulk update. This was modified from this description to this description. So you're accountable for your actions. Right, the next example I'm going to do, let me go back to my list of tasks. So here's my action list. So I've just shown you the one about the compliance against the diodes. So let me set that one as complete. We've completed that. The next one I want to show you is searching for Seagate, and I'm going to change the supplier against this one. So I'm going to go here. I think I've got them on my workbench. I do. So I've got some parts here. They're not CAD parts. It doesn't really matter whether they're CAD or not. But I've got some parts here that are work in progress, and I have them released. So if I go back to the admin tool and I remove myself from the bulk editors group, so I'm not a super user at this point in time, I can still select those and I can modify attributes against them en masse. So it might be that I want to change who the supplier is and say, supplier, where do we get these from? We now get these from Hewlett-Packard, whatever. And you build the attributes that you want to be modifying like this. So it's a very linear process, and it's a very conscious decision as to what you're doing. Okay, I'm just going to remove these. I don't need to re-enter my password because they're work in progress and I have them reserved already, and I can modify them. If I go back in here, that attribute has been updated to Hewlett-Packard. So a bulk editing tool to modify items or attributes against items, whether they are work in progress and reserved, or whether they are released, not reserved, but you have to be the member of the special supergroup in the admin at an admin level. Okay, so they're my two examples of the rename tool. What I'd like to do now is, let me go back to my action list. So we've looked at this one. Okay, that's been completed. So the next tool is the CAD rename tool. I'm sure everybody's had examples or experience with having to rename CAD files. Somebody might have called something bracket and you need to give it a proper part number, for example. So the ability to rename CAD files, the easiest way to understand it is if you did this inside Windows, you would break the relationships with any of the parent assemblies or drawings. So it's important if you rename something in CAD that all of the parents are updated. So that there are, you know, I'm sure everyone's had experience with the need to do this. Of course, the ideal situation is you give something a unique part assembly or drawing number on day one, and it keeps that number for the whole of its life. Okay. It's particularly useful if you're importing databases or importing legacy data and the file naming conventions are not good and you need to sort them out. So I'm going to pick on SolidWorks for no reason than it's just one I've got available. This tool actually works on any of the supported CAD tools. So if anybody wants me to demonstrate on any of the other CAD tools, please put it in the comments and we'll do that in the questions and answers session because it does work for every CAD tool. Okay, so I'm going to go and search for this part. Let me just grab the part number like this, copy, and I'm going to go in and say search all items for this part number. Now let me just size all the columns to fit and drag this down. So we can see here, the latest issue is issue 14. Now these are all obsolete and superseded. I wanted to pick on data in my database that isn't current data because I use it for demonstrations all of the time. So there are 14 issues of this part, and each issue is used on different parent assemblies. So if I look at it when it was issue 2, it was used on 2 parent assemblies and a parent drawing. If I look at issue 3, there were 2 there. If I go to here, it was used on 2 different assemblies. Now you'll see that the name includes -REN because I've already renamed it in testing. What I'd like to do is pick on the latest issue here because I would like to do a CAD rename. Warning, there are multiple issues. Or maybe what I should do is I should start, let me close the dialog. I'm going to remove myself. Now, there are 2 new groups at an admin level. The group used to be called SolidWorks Rename Users, but it supports all CAD applications now, or all supported CAD applications. So we've renamed the group Rename Manager Users. This group allows you to rename CAD files as long as they are at a modifiable status and you have ownership, including all of the parents. Okay, so you can decide, can somebody use the tool and how much power do they have? Because the super users here, this group, if I go into the group and I remove myself from the group, I'm also going to remove myself from this group as well, because I know I'm in 2. If I go back to DDM now and say, I want to rename this, there are multiple issues of this item available. Not all items can be modified. Okay, so I must be in the basic group. Not all parents can be modified. So it must have cached my permissions here. Maybe I need to refresh my permissions. Let me see. Right. Okay, here we go. Let me cancel. Can I override? Yes. So it's still saying that I'm in the supergroup. Let me just do this. I'm going to exit. I'm going to re-enter because it must have cached my permissions. Okay, I definitely don't want to be in the admin group. Let me just do this. System group administrators, and I will remove myself from that group. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to go back in and I'm going to search for the part that I was looking for in items. This part, issue 14, the latest issue. CAD rename. You do not have permission to modify this item. To override permissions, you must be a member of the power group rename manager super users. Okay, so let's put ourselves in the group rename manager super users for the CSI business unit. Okay, I'll try again. Warning, there are multiple issues of this item. There are 14 issues of this item or more if there are minor revisions. And renaming only one single issue may cause problems with CAD retrieval in the future. So you must consider that. Not all of the parents of all of the issues can be modified. So this is the dialog for this new rename tool. Let me just resize it here. Okay. Now we see the original name in the top and its description. We'd like to rename this. I'm going to just say manual number because I want to remove the REN from the end of the file name. Now, at the moment, it's highlighting these parents in red because they cannot be modified. One of them is obsolete, two of them are released, and therefore you do not have permission. The first thing I'll do is I want to apply this to every issue of this part. So we now have 41 parents that need to be modified. Okay. I'm going to override access controls. So I've now overridden the access controls, which allows me to modify things that are at a non-modifiable status. But you see that this still cannot be modified because it's in a different business unit. Okay, if I override ownership, it still doesn't allow me. And what that means is I need to be in the super users group because I've got multiple business units. And if those items are in a different business unit, you have to be in the group for that business unit as well. Okay, if I click on it again and say OK, everything has now gone black, and therefore I have power to overwrite all of these files, update, rename and update all of these files. So all 14 issues of the part and all related assemblies and drawings will be updated. Okay, again, there are a lot of cautionary notes at the bottom. I won't read them all out, but it's important that you do read these to understand the implications and the impact of what you're doing. If I try to say OK, you must put your password in. We have to protect the tool. It's powerful. I'm going to put my password in and I'm going to say OK. You also have to accept this liability disclaimer. If we sell you a racing car and you drive it off a cliff, we cannot be responsible for this. It is a very powerful tool. It's a very, very good tool, but it's very powerful. So these disclaimers, make sure that you understand all of this, and then we can say OK. You'll see in red text at the bottom of the screen, it's now cycling through all 41 files. It will make sure that it can do all of the renames. It then goes through all of that, and then it will check all the files back into the database. So this is just rippled through everything, and it's all been updated. If I look at the screen now, the part number here does not have the REN on the end of the part number. If I look at all issues of the part number, we see that they've all been renamed. If I look at the parent of issue 1 and a parent assembly, we'll see that the parent of this part is the assembly. And if I look at the part inside the assembly, we can see here that it's been renamed. So all of the parents have been updated. So when you come to load your assembly, it's going to work. Okay. Let me look at my notes again. So I'm going to go back to here. So to recap on this, we've just done a CAD rename on a SolidWorks part 137 that was a released item. It was actually an obsolete item. Okay, I'm going to say complete on this. The audit trail, let's take a quick look at the, well, we're going to look at the, we've just seen the where used. So all of the parents have been updated. Let me say complete on that. And the next thing is we're going to check the latest issue of the drawing and the audit trail. So I'm going to go back to my search. Hopefully it's still there. It is. Okay, so the latest issue is issue 14. When we do a rename, if we leave the PDF of the drawing behind, then the drawing could potentially have the wrong information on it because we've renamed the part that appears on the drawing. So we automatically remove the PDF. Now, the PDF for this one has been automatically recreated because on my server, let me just bring my server onto the screen here. So this is my DDM server, and I've got the action client running on the server that automatically creates PDFs, but I have got it configured for the latest issue only. So it will recreate the latest issue of any drawing that needed to be updated as well. Okay. In addition to that, if I look at this part and we look at the audit trail, let me just bring this over here. In the audit trail, we've done a rename. And Stuart McBurney today at this time did a rename from this name to this name. So we keep an audit trail and you're accountable for your actions. You'll also notice that we've also done the EUM update. So we've resent that information via XML to the drop zone that your ERP will monitor in order to update your ERP system electronically. Okay, let me go back to the beginning, back to my list of tasks. And we've looked at the latest drawing that had an automatic PDF recreated and the audit trail showing what we've done, who did it and when they did it, etc. So, quick recap, a bulk editing tool that allows us to modify multiple attributes against items regardless of status and ownership, provided you are in the super administration group called bulk item editors. And we've got a CAD rename facility that works with SolidWorks, Solid Edge, Creo, IronCAD, Inventor. Yes, those three, the 5 3D CAD tools, and it allows you to rename part numbers, and it automatically will update any parent assemblies or drawings.